قد أفلح المؤمنون.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. Respected Muslim brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm joined by Brother Nasr once again for another part of our dissection of the biography of Abu Bakr ibn Abi Quhafa. Nasr, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. It's wonderful to be back at it again.
Wonderful to be back. That being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to keep the audience waiting. So, picking up where we left off, we last left off at the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We had just gone over the greatest fadila, we would say, of Abu Bakr, the fact that he was appointed to lead salat according to the mukhalifin, and somehow that this proves his khilafah. Now, the thing is, before we continue, there is a few things I would like to note. Firstly, when it comes to the idea of Abu Bakr leading Salat, we will dissect this in more depth when we cover the biography of Aisha. Secondly, when it comes to the events of the Prophet's death, obviously we know Raziyat al-Khamis is a very, very big part of that, a very big part of this tragedy. However, with that being said, we did not cover Raziyat al-Khamis because that is more related to the biography of their Faruq, to Abu Bakr's his close friend and ally, Umar ibn al-Khattab. And so that, just want to reassure the audience, we know that these events are important. We will cover them, inshallah. But today we're going to be picking up with Saqifa. And this will not be too deep of a dive into Saqifa. We will present some reports that give you the gist of it. So first thing, the first report that we want to bring your attention to is from Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba. Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, he records in volume 21, page 144, and this is the Dar Ishbiliya print, of course, hadith 39,828. He reports with his chain, حدثنا ابن نمير عن هشام بن عروة عن أبيه, and that is, of course, عروة ibn Zubayr. عروة ibn Zubayr says, أن أبا بكر وعمر لم يشهدا دفن النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم كان في الأنصار فبويع قبل أن يرجع. So, what this is referring to, the English translation of this, is a report from Urwa ibn Zubayr, who narrates that Abu Bakr and Umar did not attend the Prophet's burial. They did not attend the Prophet's burial. They were at Saqifa. They were among the Ansar, and they attained the bay'ah for Abu Bakr before they could get back, before they could come and essentially participate or partake in the events of the Prophet's burial. So, why is this important? This is important for a number of reasons. One is that it shows very clearly that these people were concerned more with power than they were concerned with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As in, their lust for power could not even wait for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be buried. They immediately went to Saqifat Bani Sa'ida in order to vie for power with the Ansar, with Sa'd ibn Ubadah and his faction. And I want to just comment on this really quickly, even though I do think it is somewhat of a waste of time. Mukhalifin look at this report and say, oh, well, it's mursal. So we're not going to bother with this. We know, based off of the aqwal of their scholars, even al-Bukhari and Sahih al-Bukhari, he narrates the marasil of Urwa ibn Zubayr. The marasil of Urwa are considered very reliable in the school of the Mukhalifin. And this is something very interesting, is that they just, their rules make no sense. It's like the marasil of certain people are accepted, and the marasil of others are not accepted. They just pick and choose which marasil they want. So when they want marasil al-Sha'bi are fine. They want marasil fulan are fine. They want marasil Urwa are fine. When they want marasil, I don't know, Ibrahim al-Nakha'i are fine.
It's whatever suits them, you know.
Whatever suits them. And as we know, Urwa is the grandson of if I remember correctly, he's the grandson of Abu Bakr. I think he's the full brother of Abdullah ibn Zubayr, but I could be wrong. But anyway, we know he's not.
His mother is Asma bint Abi Bakr.
Excellent. So, we know that Saqifa, the first thing you have to know is that it takes place simultaneously with the Prophet's burial. So for those who ask, why wasn't Ali at Saqifa, is because Ali, salamullahi alayhi, unlike their Siddiq and their Faruq, he was concerned with the burial of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one last thing that I would like to note is that when it comes to the burial of the Prophet, there is another reference that I would like to bring the audience's attention to, and this comes from Kitab al-Sawa'iq al-Muhriqa by Ibn Hajar, which is supposed to be a refutation of the Shia, but for some reason we see the Shia actually use this book against the Mukhalifin more than vice versa. So in al-Sawa'iq al-Muhriqa, Ibn Hajar, he attempts to explain why this is the case, why Abu Bakr was not present at the Prophet's burial. So he says in volume 1, page 25, he says the following. He says, اعلم أيضا أن الصحابة رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين أجمعوا على أن نصب الإمام بعد انقراض زمن النبوة واجب بل جعلوه أهم الواجبات حيث اشتغلوا به عن دفن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. So Ibn Hajar is saying here, in English for those of you who may not know Arabic, he is saying no, that the Sahaba, they all agreed that Imamah was so important, that selecting an Imam was so important that they even missed the burial of the Prophet for it. So that
It was
begs the
wajib.
question.
What is this?
The
It's
question.
the Imamah right here.
Show us Imamah in the Quran. Well, you see no Imamah in the Quran. You see Abu Fasil and his friend ran off for this Imamah that just magically appeared out of nowhere. It's not in the Quran. Allah and His Messenger did not appoint a Khalifa. They left the Prophet unburied in order to go appoint an Imam. Where is this Imamah in the Quran? And this is
Very
the
interesting
mantiq of
question.
هذا منطق الجهلة. واقعا هذا منطق الجهلة. This is the logic of people who quite frankly have no common sense. Correct? Now, in order to go over the bay'ah of Abu Bakr, we're going to rely on the account of someone who was there, on the account of someone who played a very decisive part in the bay'ah of Abu Bakr, and that is namely Umar ibn al-Khattab. Now, I believe you wanted to present this report.
Yes, narration mentioned in al-Bukhari with his isnad to Ibn Abbas from Umar that he said, and this is a very, very long narration, Hadith 6830, where Umar says, "O people, I have been informed that a speaker amongst you says," and if anyone who is used to reading Bukhari will recognize that Bukhari is using the magic scissors to remove some names here, that a speaker amongst you says, "By Allah, if Umar should die, I will give the pledge of allegiance to such and such person. Li fulan. I'm going to give bay'at to fulan. Inshallah, I'll find out who this fulan is." One should not deceive theirself by saying that the pledge of allegiance given to Abu Bakr was given suddenly and it was successful. No doubt it was like
this
that.
translation, it was given suddenly and it was successful. That's like 5 words for one Arabic word. What is the Arabic word that he used here?
Falta.
Falta, right? Falta, how do we explain falta in English? Is a sudden action that is taken without deliberation, right? You know, you say something falata, falata minni, it slipped from me, right? It was a slip up. It was something that should not have happened.
So we need to understand something real quick. So if this imamah is wajib, so Abu Bakr fell into this imamah through a slip up. Why did the Sahaba not say, why did Umar ibn al-Khattab not say, "Oh, but you know, Abu Bakr, he had this fadila, he's this, he's that. This is why he should be Khalifa, Rasulullah appointed him." These arguments aren't used.
And
Umar continues.
This is something that we have to also go over, is that when it comes to the succession of Abu Bakr, a lot of layman Sunnis, they'll make this claim that, Abu Bakr was appointed by the Prophet. Abu Bakr was appointed by the Prophet. So there are 2 responses to this. Number one, how can you say that someone appointed by the Prophet, his bay'ah was falta? Correct?
Exactly.
Your Faruq says it's falta. You can't argue that he was appointed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Secondly, in Sahih Muslim, and we're gonna get back to the one in Bukhari. We're not leaving it. We're not done with it yet. Sahih Muslim, Hadith 1823a. We read the following: on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar. Not going to read the entire report. Essentially, this is when Umar was wounded after he was struck by Abu Lu'lu'a Nahawandi during prayer. And so, or not during prayer, rather, it was in the mosque, according to Az-Zuhri. So he says that Umar said the following: "If I would appoint my successor, I would, because one better than me did so," meaning Abu Bakr. If I were to leave you alone, I would do so because one better than me, i.e. Rasulullah, did so. And Ibn Umar says, when he mentioned Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I understood that he would not appoint anyone as Khalifa. So what is Umar saying here regarding the Prophet? Did he appoint a successor? Did he appoint Abu Bakr?
No.
According to Umar ibn al-Khattab himself, no. So back to the hadith in Bukhari. Well, what is Umar saying here? He says that it was given suddenly and it was successful. Falta.
No doubt it was like that. It was a falta. He's agreeing with the person that says this. But Allah saved the people from its evil. SubhanAllah, this bay'ah of Abu Bakr, if it's this khair and it's wajib that you need to leave the burial of Rasulullah for it, why is there evil attached to it? Is it صاحب الغار ثاني اثنين طرت أنا وأبو بكر وعمر? What is this? And there is none among you, Umar continues, who has the qualities of Abu Bakr. Remember that whoever gives the pledge of allegiance to anybody, subhanAllah, this fits exactly at Saqifa. Remember that whoever gives the pledge of allegiance to anybody among you without consulting the other Muslims, neither that person nor the person to whom the pledge of allegiance was given are to be supported, lest they both should be killed.
I don't know. No one killed Muawiyah when he did this, but anyway,
SubhanAllah, there are only 6 people.
Yeah, this is very interesting because essentially what Umar is saying in Arabic, our brothers from the Arabic speaking world will recognize this. Halalun alay, haramun alayk. It's halal for us to make Abu Bakr Khalifa this way through some secret meeting without consulting the Muslim Ummah at large, but for you cannot do this. You cannot use the same way we appointed Khalifa. No, you cannot bring Ali to power this way. So the second issue here is that, and in English, those of you in the English-speaking world, this is also known by a famous proverb: "Do as I say, not as I do." Correct. So,
SubhanAllah, there are other versions of the narrations. I believe maybe al-Jawhari narrates it. Inshallah, I'll try to find it. But it's like Umar says outright in another version of the narration, وَلَا مَنْ عَادَ لِمِثْلِهَا فَضْرِبُوا عُنُقَهُ. Like if everyone is trying to repeat what we did at Saqifat Bani Sa'id and then kill them. Like, this isn't for anyone else.
What we did was wrong. It should not be done again. This is not how you choose a Khalifa, which, and inshallah, we don't want to spend too long on this one report. We have to move on. But it is worthy of noting that today when Muslims, unfortunately, when they say they want to bring back the Khilafah, we need to elect a Khalifa, have a democratically elected Khalifa like Abu Bakr. Say, Baba, that's a falte. You're not supposed to appoint a Khalifa like that. If you appoint, and subhanAllah, we actually abided by this rule when they tried to appoint their little Khalifa in northern Iraq and Syria. We dealt with him, correct? Their so-called Khalifa, right? No, we're not going back to that system again. We're not going back to the Saqifa system of Khilafah. We don't want another Falta, correct? So moving on in Tarikh al-Tabari, volume 9. Now we're going to go into the events of Saqifa. We're going to briefly go over them. This is reported on the authority of Ibrahim al-Nakhai in Tarikh al-Tabari, volume 9, page 185 to 186. Tabari reports, he says, when Rasulullah died, Abu Bakr was not present, and he came after 3 hours. SubhanAllah, this is because he lived in Sunni. He did not live near the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it took him 3 hours to get there. He wasn't even at the Prophet's side when he died. No one dared to uncover Rasulullah's face until his exterior turned ashen. When Abu Bakr came, he uncovered the Prophet's face, kissed his forehead between his 2 eyes, and said, "With my father may you be ransomed, and with my mother, how good you were while alive, and how good you were when you are dead." Then he went out, praised Allah, and extolled him, saying, "Whoever worships Allah, Allah is alive and immortal, and whoever worships Muhammad, Muhammad is dead." Then he recited, "Muhammad is only a messenger, and many a messenger has gone before him. So if he dies or is killed, will you turn back on your heels? He who turns back on his heels will do no harm to Allah, and Allah will reward the grateful." Umar was telling the people that the Prophet was not dead, and he was threatening to kill those who maintained that the Prophet was dead. And inshallah, in the bio of Umar, we will go over this in more depth, inshallah.
We've briefly touched on this. We briefly touched on this on the video on Raziyat al-Khamis, that he didn't know that this was a verse of the Quran, and he was trying to threaten people with death.
We'll go over. There are other verses in the Quran that he claimed not to know during this incident. Inshallah, we'll go over this in the bio.
His time will come soon. His time will come soon.
Yes. the Ansar gathered in a roof building, a Saqifa. In English, a Saqifa is a portico of Bani Sa'ida to render their oath of allegiance to Sa'd ibn Ubadah. This news reached Abu Bakr, so he came with Umar and Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, asking them why they had gathered. So enter the triumvirate, enter the three big men of Saqifa, Abu Bakr, Umar, and Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah. So the Ansar replied, let us have an emir from us and another from you. And Abu Bakr said, the Umara will be from us and the Wuzara from you. هذا كذب. This is when did Abu Bakr and Umar take the Ansar as Wuzara?
I don't know. They took the people that had apostated at Riddah, right?
Yeah, Ka'b al-Ahbar and Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais and Khalid ibn al-Walid. But where's the Ansar? The Ansar, let's have an emir from us and an emir from you. Where's the emir of the Ansar? Correct? So Abu Bakr then added, I am pleased to offer you one of these two men, Umar or Abu Ubaidah. Some people came to the Prophet asking him to send a trustworthy man with them, and Rasulullah said he would send a truly trustworthy man with them, and he sent Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah. I am pleased to offer you Abu Ubaidah. Umar stood up saying, who among you would be agreeable to leave Abu Bakr whom the Prophet gave precedence? And he gave him the oath of allegiance, and the people followed Umar. So the Ansar said,
right there. That should not have happened.
There's the filter. Yes. The Ansar said, or some of them said, now look at the reaction of the Ansar. We will not give the oath of allegiance to anyone except Ali. Why is Ali's name being brought up here?
Even though he's busy burning Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi.
Yeah, but why Ali? Why not Abu Sufyan? Why not anyone else? Why Ali?
It seems that there was an event that happened not too long ago, or Rasulullah clearly showed Ali's virtue.
And that's the thing, is that the Ansar, ma'al asaf, what Abu Bakr and Umar managed to do, and inshallah, like if we were able, we'd go do a more in-depth dive into the planning behind Saqifa, the strategy behind Ahlus Saqifa, how they managed to pull this off. But the Ansar were divided. That's the problem, is that the Ansar were divided. Some of them were loyal to Amir al-Muminoon, salamullahi alayhi, but others, no, they sided with Sa'd ibn Ubadah. And so Abu Bakr and Umar managed to pull some of the Ansar to their side. So for example, Salim Mawla Abi Hudayfa, Usayd ibn Hudayr, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, as we know, was in Yemen. So they managed to essentially take advantage of the division of the Ansar.
Everyone that should have been in Jaysh Usama.
Exactly, they managed to eliminate them politically. And it was not until Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi became Khalifa that the Ansar were finally given a place at the table. Like he appointed Qais ibn Sa'ad as his governor, he appointed Abu Ayyub as one of his Umara, he appointed many of the Ansar to many important positions. In any case, we see that Ali's name is being mentioned. So this idea that Ali salamullahi alayhi was not even considered, that all the Sahaba were on board with Abu Bakr becoming the next Khalifa, is a complete lie. طيب. The next report we'll cite is from Jamharat Nasab Quraysh by Zubayr ibn Bakkar. And I believe you wanted to take this one?
Yes. It's narrated in the second volume, page 216. Inshallah, it will be there.
And this
he narrates
the
that
bio of Fatima al-Zahra, strangely enough.
Salawatullah alayha.
Salawatullah alayha.
It says here, when Abu Bakr was pledged allegiance and his authority was established, many of the Ansar regretted their pledge and blamed one another. They mentioned Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam and called out his name while he was in his house, and he did not come out to them. This caused concern among the Muhajirin, and there was a lot of dispute regarding him. And subhanAllah, this, even if for the ones that want to take their time to read the narrations of Ibn Uqda and the others on al-Khutbah al-Fadakiyah, the sermon of Zahra salawatullahi alayha, a person from the Ansar comes to her like expressing regret on how they gave bay'ah to Abu Bakr, but they lost their chance after the day of Al-Ghadir. Zahra salamullahi alayha responded. So
absolutely. And now we see here that Abu Bakr and Umar, now that they have taken their they've essentially made the first move, and the Ansar we see are panicking. And we know, we went over this in the video on Sayyidah Zahra salamullahi alayha, that many of the Sahaba, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, the likes of Salman, Miqdad, Abu Dhar, Ammar, Bilal Habashi, and many others, they had begun meeting in Fatima's house to discuss what to do next. because they had essentially like done something. They had taken them by surprise. They were dealing with the burial of the Prophet, and now this man is claiming that he's the Khalifa. Now he is gathering support. Correct? Now, what happens next, we can see that it is reported by Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal in Kitab as-Sunnah, in volume 1, page 533 to 553 to 554, hadith 1291. They report the following. He reports the following on the authority of Musa ibn Uqba from az-Zuhri. And I would like to remind the audience that according to Ibn Taymiyyah in As-Saram al-Maslul, the marasil of these early historians are acceptable, if nothing contradicts them. Correct? So he reports the following. Some of the men from the Muhajirin, including Ali ibn Abi Talib and Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, they were meeting in they became angry regarding the Pledge of Allegiance of Abu Bakr. They entered the house of Fatima, salamullahi alayha, carrying weapons. Why were they carrying weapons?
This here?
What's going on here? Umar came to them with a gang of Muslims. Correct? The Arabic here, what does it call them? Isaba. Correct? An armed group.
شيل اسم الصحابة واكتبهم عصابة.
They came to the house of Fatima al-Zahra, and among them were Usayd and Salama ibn Salama ibn al-Waqsh, who are from the tribe of Abd al-Ashhal. And it is said that Thabit ibn Qais ibn al-Shammas from the tribe of Ben al-Harith ibn al-Khazraj was among them. One of them took the sword of Az-Zubayr and struck it against a stone until it broke. Why did they break the Zubayr's sword?
There was some fighting going on.
The scene turned violent, is what this report indicates. Correct? And this is
obviously those main details are left out here.
Exactly. And al-Jawhari reports what happens next on the with his isnad to al-Layth ibn Sa'ad, the famous Egyptian jurist and historian.
Yes, the Egyptians could become happy here. He says that Ali alayhi salam delayed pledging allegiance to Abu Bakr, so he was brought out with a collar around his neck, being rushed along, while he was saying, "O Muslims, why is the neck of a Muslim being struck?" when he did not delay out of opposition, but rather out of necessity. And he did not pass by any assembly except they said to him, "Go and pledge allegiance."
Essentially, what this report is saying, and this is from Ibn Abi Hadid, is quoting the book of al-Jawhari in Sharh al-Nahj, volume 3, page 193 to 194. What's going on here is that after the house was attacked, Ali was essentially taken prisoner. And so as he was being taken to Abu Bakr, he began to cry out, like, "Oh Muslims, why is the neck of a Muslim being struck? Like, these men are intending to kill me. What crime have I committed?" when he did not delay out of opposition, but rather out of necessity. And so the Muslims of Medina, unfortunately, instead of standing up for him and telling them to let him go, what did they do? They said, "Go and pledge allegiance like everyone else." Correct? Now, what happens next, in order to truly understand the dynamic of this event, we want to go over a very infamous source in history, and this source has been very well suppressed by al-Tabari. Correct? And we're gonna go over this. Before we go over it, the first source we want to go over is Tarikh al-Tabari in volume 16, page 189 to 190. I want to let Nasser, I want you to read this one.
Yes. Narration that in the letter of Muawiyah, la'anahullah, to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, it says, Radwanullahi ala Muhammad. He didn't attack the isnad here. Says he mentioned this correspondence that had passed between the two of them, but I am loath to detail it because it contains a matter that most people could not tolerate.
Because there were a series of letters exchanged between Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, Imam Ali's governor of Egypt, and the son of Abi Bakr. Correct? This is Abu Bakr's own son, which is very important, the way Muawiyah is going to address him in this letter. However, Tabari says, I did not want to mention this because people cannot handle what's inside. It's too dangerous for the common man to see. So we're going to quote a few sources that quote it. So from the Shia side, Kitab Waqat Safin.
He's doing taqiyya here. He's doing taqiyya here, no?
The layman couldn't handle it, correct? So Waqat Safin by Nasr ibn Muzahim and Kitab Ansab al-Ashraf by al-Baladri. Correct? In this letter, Muawiyah says the following to, He says the following to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. We and your father, i.e. Abu Bakr, during the lifetime of the Prophet, used to consider the right of Ibn Abi Talib binding upon us, and his excellence was well above ours. Despite this, when Allah chose for the Prophet what he had in store for him, he took him to himself. Then your father and his Faruq were the first to snatch it and to oppose him. They worked together on this. If it was injustice, then your father founded it, and we are his partners. We followed his guidance and imitated his actions. And in Arabic, صدق وهو كذوب. أحسنت. Look what he says here. He says in Arabic, وَإِنْ كَانَ خَطَأ فَأَبُوكَ أَسَّسَهُ وَنَحْنُ شُرَكَاءَ. And this is why the ziyarah that is narrated on the authority of our imams, Allahumma al'an man assasa asas al-dhulmi wal-jawr. The one who laid the foundation, the one who made it possible. Muawiyah is saying during the time of the Prophet, none of us could do anything to Ali. None of us could come close to him in terms of his status and his superiority. Correct? بِرَأْيِهِ اقْتَدَيْنَا وَفِعْلِهِ احْتَذَيْنَا وَلَوْلَا مَا سَبَقَنَا إِلَيْهِ أَبُوكَ وَإِنَّهُ لَمْ يَرَ مَوْضِعًا لِلْأَمْرِ ما خالفنا علي ibn Abi Talib وَلَسَلَّمْنَا إِلَيْهِ. Had it not been for what your father did at Saqifa, for him snatching the right of Ali, then we would not be in this situation where I could rule over Syria and challenge Ali in a civil war. Correct?
And what's shocking?
Go ahead.
Yeah, what's shocking is that Muawiyah says this to the son of Abu Bakr. Later, his son Yazid would say this to the son of Umar. And your father Umar and his sahib, they started this dhulm of the Ahlul Bayt. So don't attack me for killing al-Hussein ibn Ali.
ولكننا رأينا أباك فعل أمرا اتبعناه واقتفونا أثره. And then he says فعب أباك ما بدا لك أو دع والسلام على من أجاب ورد غوايته وأناب. So what is he saying to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr? He says, how dare you attack me for opposing Ali when the first person to do this was who? Was your father Abu Bakr and his right-hand man, his Faruq. Correct? A lot of people say, why do you say his Faruq or their Faruq? This is the words of your uncle Muawiyah, the words of Khalu Muawiyah. Correct? Now, there is another letter from Muawiyah that indicates the way that Abu Bakr treated Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi. And this one comes from Shaykhuna Nasr ibn Muzahim, rahmatullahi alayhi, in Kitab Waqat Safi. Yeah, if you want to take it over for this one.
It's Muawiyah, la'anahullah, said the following to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in a letter. So the best among them in their Islam and the most sincere to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi was the Khalifa after him, followed by the Khalifa of his Khalifa, and the third, the wronged Khalifa, Uthman. You envied all of them and plotted against each one. We recognize this in your glaring looks, in your harsh words, in your deep sighs, and in your reluctance towards the Khulafa, the Khalifas. You were led to each one like a no-strung camel until you gave your allegiance while you were unwilling.
So Muawiyah, what is he saying here? He's saying to Ali, you've always been an enemy of the Khulafa. From the moment they took power, you opposed them. You reluctantly gave them bay'ah. They had to force you to give bay'ah. They had to take you along like a no-strung camel. And Amir al-Mu'mineen sallallahu alayhi, he replies to Muawiyah, I wish we had the time to go over Amir al-Mu'mineen's letter. But Amir al-Mu'mineen, what does he say to Muawiyah? He says, you're trying to mock me for being oppressed. There is no shame in a mu'min being oppressed as long as he does not lose faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does not compromise his religion. Correct? So now we'll go over another confession from Muawiyah. And subhanAllah, this is why we went over this in a video. Muawiyah is not Ahl Sunnah. There was no such thing as Ahl Sunnah at this time. Muawiyah, his main objective was what? Was power. So if he needs to throw Ali under the bus, there is no this myth that Ali and Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Muawiyah were all friends. It's false. Muawiyah is clearly showing you. Exactly. He's clearly showing you that there were two sides to this. Correct? In Kitab Ansab al-Ashraf, volume 3, page 280, we read another letter of Muawiyah in which he reveals more about the relationship between the Khulafa and between the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. This was also reported by Abu al-Faraj al-Isfahani in Kitab Maqatil al-Talibiyin on page 33 to 34. He says the following. he wrote to Imam al-Hasan, salamullah alayhi, and we went over this in our event on Imam al-Mujtaba, salamullah alayhi, in his biography. He says, you mentioned the death of the Prophet and the dispute among the Muslims over leadership after him. I saw that you explicitly accused Abu Bakr as-Sadiq, Umar al-Faruq, Abu Ubaidah al-Amin, the companions of Rasulullah, the righteous among the Muhajirun and the Ansar. I disliked this for you because you are a man who, in our eyes and in the eyes of the people, is neither suspicious nor ill-intentioned nor blameworthy. I wish for you to speak righteously and be remembered well. Then he, up until he says, the situation between me and you today is like the situation between you, i.e. Bani Hashim, and Abu Bakr after the Prophet. If I knew that you were more competent than I in managing the community, more cautious in caring for this ummah, better in governance, stronger in collecting wealth, and more cunning than the enemy, I would respond to what you have invited me to. And he's referring that Imam al-Hasan in his letter had ordered Muawiyah to stand down and give bay'ah. What is Muawiyah saying to Imam al-Hasan? Salamullahi alayhi.
What's happening between us is similar to what's happening after the death of Rasulullah, or what happened after the death of Rasulullah.
He's saying, yeah, Hassan, you are Ahlul Bayt, you're the Prophet's grandson. No one can deny your merit. However, Abu Bakr and Umar set a precedent, and I am going to follow that precedent. By the same right which Abu Bakr opposed your father, I am now going to oppose you. Correct? Essentially saying Abu Bakr laid down a wonderful precedent. And the same way that he argued against Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr to justify his rebellion against Amir al-Mu'mineen, his baghi against Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullah alayhi, now he's using it to do what? To justify his baghi against the Imam al-Mujtaba, salamullah alayhi. But in doing so, he has admitted what? He has admitted the illegitimacy of Abu Bakr. Correct? Now, we know that after Ali, salamullah alayhi, we know that he was forced to give bay'ah at some point. What did Abu Bakr do with Ali? Salamullah alayhi. As in, Ali is a threat to. He's a threat to his power. He's always going to be a threat. So how did Abu Bakr attempt to remedy this problem?
It is narrated that Abu Bakr tried to order, as they say, the great Sahabi Sayfullah al-Maslul, Khalid ibn al-Walid, to assassinate Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullah alayhi. And this is narrated in Kitab al-Sunnah by al-Khalal, Volume 1, page 505, Hadith 809, where it is narrated with his chain that is sahih according to the Muhaqqiq from al-Ashram, who heard that Aba Abdullah, meaning Ahmad ibn Hanbal, when a hadith was mentioned to him from Aqil ibn Khalid ibn Aqil, from az-Zuhri, from Urwa, from Aisha, from the Prophet regarding Ali and al-Abbas, and the Aqil from az-Zuhri that Abu Bakr ordered Khalid regarding Ali. Ammara Khalidan fi Ali, which we know what this means. He, Ibn Hanbal, said how, for he had not heard them. Then he said, I dislike that these narrations be recorded.
And if we look at the footnote, the Muhaqqiq of Kitab al-Sunnah by al-Khalal, what does he say? Isnad Kalam Ahmad Sahih. Correct? The Isnad for this report, as it reached Ahmad ibn Hanbal, is it reliable?
Yes, it is 100% reliable.
But Ibn Hanbal, what did he say when he heard about this report?
We need to. It's like, we need to hide these narrations. And subhanallah, this is one of the things that we get, like something useful from Kitab al-Sunnah by al-Khalal. Just like their indecency regarding these issues, how they just want to remove these narrations from the mentions of the Muslimin. They don't want anyone to know this. Why? Well,
Exactly.
If it's true, then what's the problem? If you are willing to accept it, what's the problem?
Al-Khalal is reporting this. Like, remember, Kitab al-Sunnah by al-Khalal is Kitab al-Sunnah. He's teaching you how to be a good Sunni, according to Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So he views this as a praiseworthy act, that he is hiding the fact that there exists an authentic report that Abu Bakr tried to assassinate Imam Ali. He ordered Khalid ibn al-Walid to kill Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullah alayhi. Now, another report that...
If you want to dig deeper, actually, and this is just a bit off topic, but the hadith of Urwa from Aisha about Ali and al-Abbas, if you look into Sharh Nahj al-Balagha, this is Urwa fabricating, or either it's Aisha fabricating, that Ali and al-Abbas are, wal-iyadh billah, going to hell. Like, he used to fabricate these hadith from Muawiyah.
Now we take a look at another source, Kitab al-Ansab by San'ani, and I do wish I could have found a better print for this, but it's in volume 3, page 95. He reported in the biography of al-Rawajini, and through him it has been narrated that Abu Bakr said, "O Khalid, do not do what I ordered you to do." I asked Sharif Umar ibn Ibrahim al-Husayni in al-Kufa about the meaning of this hadith, and he said he ordered Khalid ibn al-Walid to assassinate Ali, but then he regretted it and ordered him not to do it.
In the middle of his salah, he's doing the taslim. Before he does the taslim, he's just, yeah, Khalid, don't do what I told you to do.
Khalid, don't do it. I'm not gonna risk it. Like, he had ordered him to do it. He had ordered him to assassinate Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullah alayh. However, we would say at the end he feared the consequences of this action, and so he called it off. Correct? And we're gonna see there's a few reports that indicate the way he did so. So Ibn Abi Hadid,
they were best friends.
thought they were best friends, yeah. I know best friends can, call hits on each other, right? Put an APB on someone. So in Kitab Sharh al-Nahj by Ibn Abi Hadid, he records the following. He is narrating this. Ibn Abi Hadid is saying, I asked the Naqib. The Naqib was the leader of the Talibis in Baghdad, Abu Ja'far Yahya ibn Abi Zayd. I indeed wonder about Ali alayhi salam, how he remained for that long period after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and how he was not assassinated and attacked in the depth of his house with hearts burning against him. So he's essentially saying here, like, how come Ali did not get assassinated during those first 25 years? How did he survive? So he replied, the Naqib replies to him, if he had not humbled himself by putting his nose to the ground and his cheek to the earth's lowest point, he would have been killed. But he concealed himself and occupied himself with worship and prayer and studying the Quran. He abandoned his previous manner and attire, forgot the sword, and became like a repentant killer who turns into a wanderer on the earth or a monk in the mountains. When he obeyed those who took charge and became more humiliated to them than a Shoo, they left him alone and ignored him. The Arabs would not attack him except with the cooperation of the rulers and their secret agreement. So when the rulers had no incentive to kill him, they refrained from it. Otherwise, he would have been killed, and he died after a strong fortress. So I asked him, so before we continue, I want to analyze the words of the Naqib here. What is he saying? He's describing a very sad reality. What is he saying? He says the reason why Ali was not killed, what is it? Is because he retired essentially from politics. He made it clear that he was not interested in rebelling against them or in claiming his right. Correct? He humbled himself to the point where they no longer perceived him as a threat. And we can draw parallels between Amir al-Mu'mineen and his grandson and Imam al-Sajjad salamullah alayhi in this regard. This is why the rulers of al-Zubayr and al-Umayyah did not bother him as much as some of the later imams. It's because he occupied himself with worship. Correct? So, continuing on, he says, I asked the Naqib, is it true, the story of Khalid? What's he referring to here, Brother Nasser?
This assassination attempt on Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullah alayhi.
Is it true that Abu Bakr ordered Khalid to do this? So the Naqib responded, some of the Alawiyin mentioned that.
The descendants of Imam Ali mentioned this.
Descendants of Imam Ali, we have this tradition in our family. We narrate this. Then he said, it is narrated that a man came to Zufar ibn Hudayl, the companion of Abu Hanifa. Okay? So one of Abu Hanifa's students, someone came to him and asked him a fiqhi question. What does Abu Hanifa say about exiting the prayers for reasons other than saying the salutation, such as talking, excessive movement, or an incident? So is it okay for me to exit salat, like I'm praying? Is it okay for me to exit salat other than taslim? To exit my salat early? So Zufar replied, it is permissible. Abu Bakr said in his testimony what he said. The man asked, what did Abu Bakr say? So Zufar said, don't worry about it. The man repeated the question a second and a third time, and so Zufar cried out, remove him, remove him. I was suspecting that he was one of the followers of Abu al-Khattab. So what did he just confirm? He said, he's basically confirming that, subhanAllah, that the student of Abu Hanifa is giving a ruling based off of the assassination attempt on Imam Ali. He's saying it's okay for you to end your salat to say something to someone. And what is his evidence for that? Is that Abu Bakr, before the taslim, he stopped and he said to Khalid, don't do what I ordered you to do. I'm calling it off. Don't assassinate Ali. Not a good idea. Correct? And again, this report, as we said, is reliable, is authentic in the books of, or rather, it was proven to be authentic in the book of Al-Khallal. However, that report has been largely suppressed. It's very difficult to find in the books of the Mukhalifin. Now, the next chapter that we're going to cover, what topic is next?
Basically what happened between Sayyidah Zahra salawatullahi alayha and Abu Bakr. More from towards the Abu Bakr perspective, as it was covered briefly by Brother Saif in his biography on Zahra salawatullahi alayha.
Exactly. So we're going to quickly go over this. We're going to go over some of the most important points. So regarding Abu Bakr specifically, Al-Mas'udi reported the following in his book Muruj al-Dhahab. And what is sad is that Al-Mas'udi here, he says that I covered this topic in more depth in my book Hada'iq al-Adhan. However, Kitab Hada'iq al-Adhan, this book of Mas'udi, did it reach us?
No, it did not.
It did not reach us, correct? So the Al-Mas'udi, he did go into more depth regarding this issue in another one of his books. However, we have a hint of it here in Kitab Muruj al-Dhahab, volume 3, page 93. Al-Mas'udi says the following. And this is confirmed, by the way, by Ibn Abi al-Hadid in Sharh Nahj al-Balagha, volume 10, page 329. So they both say the following. When Urwa ibn Zubayr was questioned regarding his brother Abdullah ibn Zubayr's intending to burn Bani Hashim for refusing to pledge allegiance to him during his counter-Khilafah in Mecca, Urwa cited the precedent of Abu Bakr. Had he not used fire to threaten his enemies when they threatened to cause disunity and sedition? So Nasser, what is Urwa saying here, essentially? What is this about?
It's referencing what Abu Bakr used to do.
Because as we know, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, what did he do to Bani Hashim? What did he do to Muhammad ibn Hanafiya and Abdullah ibn Abbas?
He was about to light up firewood and burn them alive.
He wanted to burn them alive because they were refusing to get with the program. They were refusing to pledge allegiance to him. So people would attack Urwa for this. Like, your brother went crazy. Your brother went crazy on us, man. He tried to burn Bani Hashim. What's wrong with your brother? So what did Urwa say to defend his brother?
Okay, we know what happened at Fatima's house. Abu Bakr did it.
Listen, as-Sadiq did it first. Just like Muawiyah before him. The precedent of as-Sadiq is always, when all else fails, cite the precedence of Abu Fasil. Right? So it's like, listen man, trying to burn Bani Hashim is a good thing. Abu Bakr did it before. They had a good reason. Right?
Sometimes you
gotta burn Bani Hashim in order to get to set the ummah straight, in order to unite the ummah. Correct? So this is, and inshallah, the attack on Fatima's house, we'll go over that more in the biography of Umar. But from Abu Bakr's side, this reference from Urwa is reasonable. Now, regarding the witnesses regarding the issue of Fatima Zahra's witnesses, as we know, Fatima Zahra, she brought witnesses to testify that Rasulullah had given her Fadak during his own lifetime. And so we're going to go over these reports. So you go over the report of Zayd al-Shahid, inshallah.
So it is narrated with a Hassan chain, according to the Muhaqqiq of Tarikh al-Madinah by Ibn Shabbah, in the first volume, page 124, hadith number 554. It is said from Numayri ibn Hassan that he asked Zayd ibn Ali alayhi salam because he wanted to know the truth about Abu Bakr and the Zahra. So Zayd alayhi salam replied, according to the narration, Abu Bakr took away Fadak from Fatima concerning this matter. So Zayd said Abu Bakr was a merciful man and he disliked to change the way the Prophet used to do things. Then Fatima alayhi salam came to him and said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam gave me Fadak. So he said, do you have a witness for this? Or do you have witnesses for this? So she brought Ali alayhi salam and he bore witness for her. Then she brought Ayman salamullahi alayha and she said, don't you bear witness that I am of the people of paradise? Rasulullah, he called Ayman one of Nisa al-Jannah. Abu Bakr said yes. Abu Ahmed continued, where it says it means that she said it to Abu Bakr and Umar. So she Ayman was addressing those two. Then she continued.
Both of them,
So
not
I
just
bear
not just Abu
witness.
Bakr. Yeah.
Ahsantum. Yeah, Umar was also witnessing these events. There are similar narrations in al-Ikhtisas by al-Mufid about what Umar did right after. Says, so I bear witness that the Prophet gave her Fadak, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Abu Bakr said, with the testimony of a man and woman, you cannot win this. And so Zayd, and we highly doubt that Zayd actually said this, by Allah, if the judgment returned to me, I would have judged the same way Abu Bakr did.
Now here's and I want to highlight this as well. That al-Mukhalifin, when it comes to the akhbar of Zayd al-Shaheed, salamullahi alayhi, they lie all the time. All the time. They fabricated that he made nabith halal. Like in the so-called Musnad of Zayd, it's filled with, basically they took Hanafi fiqh and then tried to attribute it to Zayd al-Shaheed, salamullahi alayhi. They claim that Zayd made nabith halal. They claim that Zayd called the Shia Rafida, that he gave them that name. And we know that this is a lie. Correct? And our brother Lukoris, I believe he did a video on that, highlighting this. So it is not hard to see that they would attribute this to Zayd al-Shaheed, that they would add this in. Correct? But the fact of the matter remains is that this report is hujjah against the Mukhalifin. And what is it saying? It is saying that not one, not two, but three of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we can argue that Fatima and Ali are Ahlul Bayt, and the Sayyidah Ayman, ta'ala alayha, she was Rasulullah's nanny. She was the servant of his father Abdullah salamullahi alayhi. And she is one of Nisa'ul Jannah, from the famous hadith, her manqaba, that Rasulullah said, whoever wants to marry a woman of paradise, who should he marry? He should marry Ayman. Correct? And Ayman cites this, like, you know I am a woman of paradise. You know that I'm not a liar. And I am testifying that Rasulullah gave Fatima Fadak. Correct?
Is it not also mentioned in other sources that Al-Hasan wal-Hussein, salawatullahi alayhima, Sayyida Shabab Ahlul Jannah, also testified? And the hujjah of their testament is that they are Sayyida Shabab Ahlul Jannah.
It is mentioned in certain books like Mu'jam al-Buldan. I don't think it's too reliable. I don't think it's as firmly established as the fact that Fatima brought Ali and Ayman, and there are some other reports that say that she brought another servant of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now the next report we're going to go over is the report of Imam as-Sadiq sallallahu alaihi, as reported by al-Baladhuri, Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Baladhuri, in Kitab Futuh al-Buldan, page 44. He says the following. With his isnad to Imam as-Sadiq sallallahu alaihi, Fatima said to Abu Bakr, give me my share that Rasulullah allocated for me. He asked her for evidence, so she brought Ayman and Rabah, a freed slave of the Prophet, as witnesses. They testified to that. He said, in this matter, the testimony of a man and two women is not permissible. Correct?
Yeah.
Now, question. Someone asked the question. How do we respond to Abu Bakr's ruling? Was this a valid ruling that he could reject these witnesses? Because the numbers of male versus female witnesses did not add up. We respond to this.
This can't be true.
This is unacceptable. But why is that?
Ali alayhi salam, all his virtues, Rasulullah is from him, and he is from Rasulullah. As-Zahra Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, Ayman is one of the women of paradise. You can't just reject their witness.
Correct. And let's look at the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to see if it gives us an answer. So the first report is from Ibn Abbas in Kitab Sahih Muslim. In Sahih Muslim, and this is also in Kitab Sunan Abi Dawood, on the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas, they report the following. They say that Ibn Abbas said, the Prophet acted on the testimony of a single witness. أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قضى باليمين على المدعى عليه, by the oath of the defendant. So can you give ruling based off of one witness or one testimony?
No.
Yes, absolutely. طيب. Secondly, now I want to cite the report of another Sahabi, and I want you to really look at this isnad. Something very interesting is going on here. This is Kitab Sunan ibn Majah. Also, would you be so kind as to read the hadith? Don't read the isnad, just read the Sahabi who narrates it, and read the metan of the report.
Yes. It is narrated
Sunan
from
ibn Majah,
Jabir.
hadith 2, yeah. Sunan ibn Majah 2369.
عن جابر رضوان الله تعالى عليه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قضى باليمين مع الشاهد. The Prophet passed judgment on the basis of an oath from the claimant along with a single witness.
طيب. So who's narrating this?
Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari.
Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, radwanullahi ta'ala alayh. Now, read the isnad. Read who's narrating it from Jabir. You want to read the rest of the isnad from me?
تدلل حدثنا محمد بن بشار حدثنا عبد الوهاب حدثنا جعفر بن محمد عن أبيه صلوات الله عليهما
عن جابر.
عن جابر. نعم.
هذا isnad mubarak, and we covered it in the biography of Sayyidina Jabir salamullahi alayhi. Like when things tie together. You see, who's narrating this from Jabir? Imam al-Bakr salamullahi alayhi. Who's narrating it from Imam al-Bakr? Imam as-Sadiq salamullahi alayhi. Why are the Ahlul Bayt narrating this from Jabir? Because this is the haqq of their grandmother Fatima salamullahi alayha. This is the refutation of their so-called Sadiq when he oppressed the Sayyidah Zahra salamullahi alayha. Correct? And this has been narrated on the authority of the Ahlul Bayt themselves, not just from Jabir. Correct? Not just from Jabir ibn Abdullah. So we read in the Muwatta of Malik, Kitab al-Muwatta by Malik ibn Anas, he says the following. He reports with his isnad to Ja'far ibn Muhammad. عن جعفر بن محمد عن أبيه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قضى باليمين مع الشاهد. Correct? We also see this, interestingly, in Kitab al-Musannaf by Ibn Abi Shayba. In Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, in volume 12, page 520 to 521, hadith 24,497, what does Imam as-Sadiq say?
The same thing.
Narrated by, I believe, this is Sufyan al-Thawri. He narrates on the authority of Imam as-Sadiq that he says, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قضى بشهادة شاهد ويمين قال وقضى بها علي بين أظهركم.
Imam Ali alayhi salam used to have this as well.
Ali also used this. He also gave ruling according to the testimony of a single witness. بين أظهركم, what does that mean? Who's he speaking to here? Who's the narrator from him?
Would it not be Sufyan al-Thawri?
Sufyan al-Thawri, where's he from?
The people of Basra.
People of Iraq, correct? People of Iraq. So, subhanAllah, in the Mukhalifeen, they bring up this absolutely ridiculous shubha. Oh, the narrators are all from Iraq. All these Kufans are narrating from Ja'far ibn Muhammad. Baba, it's in your books as well. Most of your narrators from Imam al-Sadiq are from people of Iraq. Correct? And the same report can be found in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. The report of Ibn Abi Shayba can be found in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. Hadith 1345. Ja'far al-Sadiq salamullahi alayh, from his father, the Prophet passed judgment based on an oath along with one witness. And he said, and Ali judged between you based on it. Now, Nasr, I want to ask you a simple question. Inshallah, we're supposed to be focusing on Mathalib Abi Bakr. However, شوية دفاع عن أئمة أهل البيت عليهم السلام. It deserves a little bit of time. Correct? Salaamullah alayhim. Mukhalifeen, whenever we tell them قال جعفر ibn Muhammad, the isnad goes back to Ja'far ibn Muhammad. You know what the Mukhalifeen always say?
It's mursal.
It's mursal. The isnad is mursal. How come that's the way they're narrating in your books as well?
SubhanAllah, it's as if the people they were talking with already knew what they were getting it from.
Absolutely. And you want to know the best proof for that? The Sunnis have it in their own books. Kitab al-Kamil fi al-Du'afa by Al-Jurjani. Look what Al-Jurjani says. In volume 2, page 356, he narrates with his isnad to a narrator, Abi Bakr ibn Ayyash. He was asked, ما لك لم تسمع من جعفر ibn Muhammad وقد أدركته? You never heard from Ja'far ibn Muhammad, even though you were in his time. You could have met him. You were contemporary with him. فقال, it's like, what? So he's basically being asked, why didn't you hear from Ja'far ibn Muhammad? So his answer is like, I did hear from him, I just don't like to narrate from him. Why don't you like to narrate from Ja'far ibn Muhammad? Look at the reason that this guy gives. He says, سألناه عن ما يتحدث به من الأحاديث أشيئا سمعته. Ja'far, when you are narrating from قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله, Rasulullah did this, قال Rasulullah, where are you getting this from? Did you hear this? Look what Imam al-Sadiq says. لا ولكنها رواية رويناها عن آبائنا. So whenever one of these people, Sadaq, Imamuna as-Sadiq, salamullahi alayhi, whenever they say, oh, it's Mursal, where's the chain to Rasulullah? Take it up with Ja'far ibn Muhammad, who you claim to love and you claim to follow. You put him in your book of Du'afa narrators. Because he doesn't narrate from Fulan, from Fulan, from Fulan. No, he narrates it from Ruwaya from his ancestors. Salamullahi alayhim. Correct? But in any case, returning back to the issue of Fadak, correct? Sayyidah Zahra, salamullahi alayha, during her debate with Abi Bakr, and we will, inshallah, conclude with this chapter, inshallah, we'll continue in another session. She managed to get Abu Bakr to contradict himself in an amazing way. And this hadith comes to us. Who narrates this hadith, Nasser? Tell me who narrates this hadith.
Would it not be Mawlana Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq, salawatullahi alayhi?
Well, we already went over the hadith of Imam as-Sadiq, correct? The next report. Actually, wait, no, we skipped the part. I apologize. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm a little excited for this next part. Okay, so firstly, so we already went over. Abu Bakr contradicted the Sunnah by rejecting the witnesses of Sayyidah Zahra. Correct? We're in agreement there. What about the Quran?
Yes.
We're not going to go over all the tafasir of these ayahs. If you want, you can go back to these tafasir and you'll see that they would confirm what we are saying. However, we would like to put
here, herself, she explained it in her khutbah.
Exactly. She explained it in her own khutbah. However, it is interesting to note the report of Al-Waqidi as reported by Ibn Sa'd in his Tabaqat. I'd like you to read over this one. Kitab al-Tabaqat, volume 2, page 241. Correct?
The Shaykh Al-Waqidi from Hisham bin Sa'd, correct? From Al-Abbas ibn Abdullah ibn Ma'bad, from Ja'far al-Sadiq, salawatu rabbi wa salamuhu alayh. And he said, Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullahi alayha, came to Abu Bakr and demanded her share in the inheritance. Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib came to him and demanded his share in the inheritance, and Ali came with them. Thereupon Abu Bakr said, the Apostle of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said, we leave no inheritance, that we leave behind us is sadaqah. I shall make provisions for those for whom the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa had made. On this, Ali alayhi salam said, وَوَرَثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُد.
Hang on a second. So let's dissect something. The Sayyidah Zahra, when she first came to Abu Bakr about Fadak, what was she claiming? What was she saying?
Rasulullah had given it to her. It was hers.
Rasulullah had given it to her. So when Abu Bakr rejected that, he made that pathetic excuse of, you don't have enough witnesses, correct? What does Fatima Zahra do next? Now she does ilzam. Says, okay, you are claiming Rasulullah did not give this to me in his lifetime. No problem. By your standard, if Rasulullah did not give it to me in his lifetime and I am his only surviving daughter, I now have the right to claim it as what?
Inheritance.
As inheritance. And so now, what does Abu Bakr do when she does this to him, when she does ilzam of him? He has no choice but to do what?
Fabricate on Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
To fabricate a hadith that blatantly contradicts the Quran. Correct? And he himself is going to contradict himself. Correct? Sayyidah Zahra, salamullahi alayha, who does she have with her? She has Amir al-Muminoon, salamullahi alayhi. So what did Imam Ali say? When he heard Abu Bakr narrate, وَوَرَثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُد. And Sulaiman inherited from Dawood. And what else does he cite?
And Zakaria alayhi salam said, وَهَبْ لِي مِنْ لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ. If I remember the verses correctly.
Yeah, and these two verses in the Quran, Surah 27, Ayah 16. Surah 27 is, let's see here, Surah al-Naml, correct? And the Surah 19 is Surah Maryam. So Surah al-Naml, Ayah 16, and Surah Maryam, Ayah 6. So immediately, the moment Abu Bakr made up this hadith, who responded to him? Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi. What are you talking about? Prophets don't leave behind inheritance. It's in the Quran. So what did Abu Bakr say?
This is as it is by Allah, you know it as I know.
Thereupon Ali alayhi salam said, this is the book of Allah that speaks. Then they became quiet and retired.
Ajib, he admits, he knows that he's wrong.
Ali ma'al Quran, wal Quran ma'ali.
Yeah. Salamullahi ala Amir al-Mu'mineen.
And Umar, their Faruq, what does he say? Aqdana man?
Ali.
Aqdana Ali. Aqdana Ali. Ali took Fatima's side this entire time. Correct? So Abu Bakr, how did he respond to Ali when he brought up these ayahs of the Quran? It is what it is. It is what it is. And so that's where they left it. Now, I mentioned earlier, we got a little ahead of ourselves. Now we're back to it.
Yeah.
Now we're back to it, right? Fatima got Abu Bakr to contradict himself. When he made up this hadith, he got Sayyidah Zahra got him to contradict himself. Now, who narrates this report?
المولى أبو الطفيل عامر بن واثلة
Abu
رحمه الله تعالى
Tufail, Amr
رضوان
ibn
الله
Wa'il
عليه.
al-Layth al-Kinani, because we in Mu'minoon cannot go a single day without mentioning something from Abu Tufail, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh. Correct? Abu Tufail ibn Khassati Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayh. The preserver of these traditions. And as we know, Abu Tufail, when he narrates something, you know it's going to be Rafidi. So what does Abu Tufail narrate here? Abu Tufail narrates something extremely dangerous, and that's why we're going to mention all of the sources for it. We're only going to read one of them, but we're going to mention where you can read this source for yourself. It's in Tarikh al-Madinah by Ibn Shabba in volume 1, page 123 to 124, hadith 551. It's in Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal. You see here in Musnad Ahmad, volume 1, page 191 to 193, hadith number 14, on the authority of Abu Tufail. And Albani confirmed this isnad as-sahih in Sunan Abi Dawud. The same isnad is in Sunan Abi Dawud, hadith 2973. However, for some reason, the report in Sunan Abi Dawud is mabtur. It's missing certain phrases, and we're going to see why. Correct? It's in Musnad Abi Bakr by al-Marwazi in volume, it's only one volume. It's page 121 to 122, hadith number 78. And it is in Musnad al-Bazzar, volume 1, page 124 to 125, hadith number 54. And it is lastly in Musnad Abi Ya'la, volume 1, page 40 to 41, hadith number 37. So it is in a number of Sunni sources. And the isnad, we're going to use the one in... Oh, go ahead.
No, it's this is a very familiar name, and Walid ibn Jumay is in the chain here.
Walid ibn Jumay. Wait a minute,
what's going on here?
Wait a minute, you're telling me the Rafidi Abu Tufail and his Rafidi disciple who narrated that Abu Bakr tried to assassinate Rasulullah is about to expose Abu Bakr again? No wonder Ibn Hazm tried to tell this. Ibn Hazm tried to warn them, but no one would listen. So he narrates with his isnad to Al-Walid ibn Jumay عن أبي الطفيل والله تعالى عليه قال لما قبض رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أرسلت فاطمة إلى أبي بكر أنت ورثت رسول الله أم أهله. Fatima sent a message. Did you inherit Rasulullah or did his family inherit him? قال فقال أبو بكر لا بل أهله.
Subhanallah, he must have forgotten here.
Wait a minute. I thought you said the Prophet doesn't leave behind any inheritance. Now you're saying that his family is supposed to inherit him. You've contradicted yourself. قالت فأين سهم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. So you admit that we're supposed to inherit him. Give me what I'm supposed to inherit from him. قال فقال أبو بكر إني سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يقول إن الله عز وجل إذا أطعم نبيا طعمة ثم قبضه جعله للذي يقوم من بعده فرأيت أن أرده على المسلمين. قالت فأنت وما سمعت من رسول الله أعلم. Okay? There's something really, really important here. Very, very important. Two very important things. Number one, when we say Abu Bakr contradicted himself, Mukhalifin, the laymen of the Mukhalifin, when you debate them, you show them these sources, what do? They like to wiggle around. They like to start making up stuff on the spot. Oh, the hadith doesn't mean that. You Rafid are making stuff up. It doesn't contradict. Let's review it one more time. Abu Bakr says that the Prophet said that we do not leave behind what?
Inheritance.
Now Abu Bakr, when Fatima asked him, who inherits the Prophet? What did he say?
He's saying his family.
His family. This is a clear contradiction, clear as day. However, if you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe me. But you should look into what your scholar Ibn Hajar says in Fath al-Bari. In Fath al-Bari, in volume 9, correct? And we're using the Mu'assasat al-Risala print. We upgraded. In volume 9, page 362 to 363. he says the following. He quotes the exact same hadith from Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And then what does he say? He says, and this is on page 363, ثم مع ذلك ففيه لفظ منكر وهي قول أبي بكر بل أهله فإنه معارض للحديث الصحيح إن النبي لا يورث.
Subhanallah.
This is munkar because it's a contradiction. Well, then you have to figure. Well, subhanallah, if the Quran says وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ, what?
Ahsantum, yeah.
Yeah. لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ, how does the ayah go?
Don't exactly remember, but they would have found many great mistakes in it.
Yeah, there would be many contradictions in it. Right?
اختلافا كثيرا, yeah.
And لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. So here Ibn Hajar is like, no, this is munkar. This can't be, because Abu Bakr already narrated that the Prophet can't inherit. So now there's a question. Ibn Kathir in al-Bidayah wal-Nihaya, you know what he says? He also noticed this. Ibn Kathir and al-Dhahabi, the two Damascene pro-Umawi scholars, what do they narrate? In al-Bidayah wal-Nihaya and Tariq al-Islam, both of them noted this. Ibn Kathir in al-Bidayah wal-Nihaya, in volume 8, page 195, Tab'at Dar Hajar, he notes that this is something very, very bad. Correct? What does he say? فَفِي لَفْظ هَذَا الْحَدِيث غَرَابَةٌ وَنَكَارَةٌ. There's something wrong with the content of this hadith. Correct? Al-Dhahabi in Tariq al-Islam, he says the same thing. Correct? He says the same thing. رواه أحمد في مسنده وهو منكر وأنكر ما فيه قوله لا بل أهله. All three of them, Ibn Hajar, Ibn Kathir, Dhahabi, saw the problem here. They saw, what did Fatima essentially do? She exposed him.
Make him contradict himself, yes.
She got him to contradict himself, and Abu Tufail made sure that we heard about it. Correct? But there's something else I want you to notice. Ibn Kathir, look what this man does, this despicable man. You know what he says? And this was quoted by Shu'aib al-Arnaut as though to do damage control in the footnote of Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Look what he says. He says that Ibn Kathir says, في البداية والنهاية, after quoting this hadith, ففي لفظ هذا الحديث غرابة ونكارة ولعله روي بمعنى ما فهمه بعض الرواة وفيهم من فيه تشيع. لا فيهم من فيه رفض وهو أبو الطفيل رضوان الله تعالى عليه. فليعلم ذلك وأحسن ما فيه قوله. Don't focus on the end, brother Nasib. Do not focus on the end. Correct? Focus on the last part. When Fatima says what? أنت وما سمعت من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وهذا هو الصواب المظنون بها واللائق بأمرها وسيادتها وعلمها ودينها رضي الله عنها. It's not, let's look at what Fatima did. No. Let's come to our conclusion and then start judging Fatima, whether she agrees with us or not. Correct? ولكنها سألته بعد هذا أن يجعل زوجها ناظرا على هذه الصدقة فلم يجبها إلى ذلك لما قدمناه فعتبت عليه بسبب ذلك. She became angry at him when he wouldn't give her the land. وهي امرأة من بنات آدم. She's just another آدمية. She's just another human being. تأسف كما يأسفن وليست بواجبة العصمة مع وجود نص رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله ومخالفة أبي بكر. And he does ترضي on him. وقد روينا عن بكر and he does ترضي on him again أنه ترضى فاطمة وتلينا قبله موتها فرضيت رضي الله عنها. And this is of course a reference to the report of Sha'bi, which is a lie.
Yeah, it's a lie. And subhanallah, it's like she's just a woman, and you know she makes mistakes like the rest of. The problem here is it's like he's completely ignoring that Rasulullah says. Subhanallah, Ibn Kathir is a outright nasibi, because when Rasulullah says "Kamula min al-rijali kathir wa lam yakun min al-nisa illa arba'a," one of them is Zahra salamullahi alayha. She's one of the four complete women, one of the four ma'soom women salamullahi alayhim. This nasibi, he fabricates a hadith and says it's not 4 but it's 3. كَمُنَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ كَثِيرٌ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا ثَلَاثَةٌ. So now he's going against Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and he's removing the fadl of az-Zahra. Salam Allah alayha.
Now there's
Hey, what do
one
you
more
expect from
thing
this
I want you.
Umayyad?
Now there's one more thing I'd like to point out. There's something very important here that you may have missed. Something very important to point out. Go back to the report of Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal. In the report
جيد.
of Musnad ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal, what does Fatima say at the end?
فأنت وما سمعت من رسول الله أعلم.
Question. Where did the word a'lam come from? Because look
It's
at
a very interesting question.
Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, Ibn Kathir is quoting the report from Musnad Ahmad. What does he say? How does he say
فأنت
it? She
وما
says,
سمعت من رسول الله.
where's the word a'lam? Where did a'lam come from? In Tarikh al-Islam by Dhahabi, what do they say? What does he quote her saying?
فأنت وما سمعت من رسول الله.
Where did the word a'lam come from? If you go to Musnad Abi Bakr al-Mirwazi, how does he end the report?
The same way.
أنت وما سمعت من رسول الله. Because the phrasing أنت وما سمعت من رسول الله, I don't even think that's grammatically correct. It should be وأنت أعلم بما سمعت من رسول الله. So the word a'lam, someone added it to make it look like Fatima was conceding the argument. But that's not what she was doing. أنت وما سمعت من رسول الله. What's she saying? She's saying Allah will judge you for what you're claiming you heard from Rasulullah. You know very well what you heard from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Correct? Do you have any final comments to add, Brother Nasser, before we bring this session to it? Because we covered a lot today. Covered a lot.
Yes, indeed we did. Nothing too much in particular, بس السلام على مولاتنا فاطمة الزهراء واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائها من الأولين والآخرين.
Inshallah, in the next session, we will go over briefly go over the reports regarding Fatima's death, her martyrdom, and her anger with Abu Bakr, and how she did not prevent him from coming to her funeral. We shall go over some of the reports regarding the way Abu Bakr spoke about Ali and the way Ali salamullah alayh spoke of Abu Bakr, and we shall also go over some of the more infamous crimes that he committed during his khilafah. With that being said, we will catch you all on the next one. Please keep us in your dua. We will end with Surah Al-Fatiha. تسبقها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.